My name is Sean Bloomquist, and I'm part of the San Francisco Regional Hub for 3D Movements. And I want to share with you 3D Movements' key vehicle we call the learning community. The learning community is the vehicle that creates a culture of missional discipleship in the life of everyday people in your church. One of the metaphors that's been extremely helpful for us is actually climbing Mount Everest. It used to be just the elite climbers who could climb Everest, right? All documentaries show these extreme climbers, and it was just a few very intense elite people. But now everyday people can climb Everest, right? Dentists, lawyers, teachers, even a man that's blind has been able to climb the largest mountain in the world. It's an amazing feat. And one of the main reasons for this breakthrough is there's a pathway with a base camp and then 4 other camps ascending up the mountain as people climb and acclimate until they reach the top. Now, 3D Movements has a pathway. It's our 2-year learning community. And on our pathway, you have 5 2 to 3 day immersions every 6 months with weekly coaching in between the first year and every other week the second year to help you climb the mountain of missional discipleship for everyone. So let me walk you through these camps. First is our base camp. This is Sundays. This is the gathered people of God who are sent out into the adventure of missional discipleship in their everyday lives and become the scattered church. Each week they return to base camp, and Sundays becomes a celebration of the God they experienced during the week. They're not coming to be serviced on Sundays, they're coming to celebrate. So Sundays is not the top of the mountain, it is actually the base camp we return to tell the stories of all the good news that's gone on during our week. Now, as we leave base camp, we go to camp 1 in our immersion, and we call it Be Disciples. This is the first leg of your journey where we ask you the fundamental question: do you have a Jesus-shaped life? And this includes the 3 relationships of Jesus: his relationship with his Father, his relationship with the 12, and his relationship with the crowds and those marginalized. And we see this clearly in Luke 6:12. You then take 6 months with weekly coaching and learn to live this as you lead it. Now, the second camp on your journey with us is called Disciples. This is significant because we actually have to do what Jesus did and invite people to follow us as we follow Christ. We need to give a few people access to our lives like Jesus did so they can learn to imitate our faith, as Paul says. The key to this immersion is to call a few and give them access to our lives, and then also coaching weekly in what we call a huddle, where they work on hearing God's voice and doing what he says. This is the beginning of your extended family on mission. We start from Sundays, then Be Disciples, then Call Disciples, on to Camp 3, which is Train Disciples, where you learn to create a training culture in your church. This is a development culture that empowers your people to live as everyday missionaries. Our volunteer culture begins to give way to a trained, empowered missionary culture. We call it Training Everyday Missionaries. And as you begin to call and train disciples, the 4th camp is now Multiply Disciples. Multiply Disciples is where we have created, scaled, and sustained all the camps below. And now we have a powerful pathway for families on mission who can multiply the same pathway in their own missional context. They will be, call, and train disciples where they live and work as a scattered church. And then on Sundays, we'll gather again to celebrate the God they experienced in their week. The 5th camp, Summiting, is what we call Empowered Movement. The Empowered Movement is like Wesley's Methodist movement that came out of the Moravian movement of the 17th century in the Czech Republic. The characteristics of a movement is a people who have a passionate spirituality, radical community, and a missional zeal. They had a life of its own. We not only need a pathway, though, the pathway I just explained, there are also 4 key elements to make this climb. Besides a pathway, you need the right tools and equipment. What I love about 3DM is the life shapes, the visual tools we use to create the culture and pass on the way of life of missional discipleship. It's a common language like hearing and doing around the tool of the learning circle, or up in and out, which is the tools of the 3 relationships of Jesus that help us multiply out beyond ourselves as we follow the pathway of missional discipleship. But you also need a team. You want to climb with your team. You want to go through this with your elders, your staff, and eventually your church. And we help you develop a slow track and a fast track for your entire church. And this leads me to the next element you'll need, a Sherpa. Sherpas are the guides who help you climb because they've climbed before. They know the camps, they know the terrain, the weather patterns. They help navigate and calibrate your climb. My experience as a pastor with 3DM Sherpa prepared me to be a Sherpa for my leaders. I was able to build this pathway and experience multiplying missional disciples in my own context. So it lets me know it does work. And over the last 6 years, I've been privileged to help pastors and leaders like you Sherpa and guide your people into missional discipleship. And the very last thing we need, it's the most important element, is oxygen. You need oxygen to climb Everest so you can reach the highest levels and acclimate at the highest levels to reach the top. And our oxygen is simply the breath of the Holy Spirit. You cannot and you will not be able to see a movement of God unless it is spirit breathed and spirit sustained in you and through you and in your people. This is the vehicle we call a learning community, and we want to invite you now to take your next step. Now, I made this decision in 2008 that I was going to climb this mountain of missional discipleship or I'd die trying. And the reason was because I simply knew it was the way of Jesus. My challenge for you is to remember the call God has given you to make disciples, to face the challenge of this climb and don't settle for where you are now. Finish strong as God's kingdom leader or die trying. We are a resurrected people. Let's live this way. Click the link below and take your next step to sign up for a 6-month coaching opportunity. Go first, and your people will follow you.